Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from In a Better Place, and this is a follow-up to Don't Ignore Your What the Fuck moment with the Narcissist. And here's her story. Dear Ollie, thank you again for this channel. Your honest reactions are validations for the narc-abused children who are now adults that need it and never had growing up. This letter is about my histrionic mother, sometimes borderline, sometimes happy narc, playing a major role in killing my faith. My mother found a willing audience she could freely express over-the-top emotions in her religion. She was raised Catholic, and I remember getting poked and shushed as a child at Mass. Or that disgusting hot breath in my ear, hissing and whispering, anything if I wanted... asking if I wanted to be taken to the bathroom for a spanking because I couldn't sit still. Yuck. That was always a great tactic my mother would pull as well. Asking me if I want. Do you want me to take you and beat you in front of everyone, pull down your pants, and do you want... So like when it happens, it's like, oh, you must have wanted it. You must want it. They tell you, you must want me to beat you. You must want me to abuse you. Around age 5 or 6, Mother found a Bible study group that had progressive views about God and Jesus. I later learned that this group was part of the Jesus movement back in the 70s. You can wiki what that movement was all about. But basically they believed God would directly speak to them, and they could speak in tongues and receive the gifts of the Spirit, whatever that means, and were charismatic in their worship, meaning they sang and raised their hands to Jesus, etc. It was all very scary to me as a child, not to mention the fear of going to hell was a big part of the indoctrination. So Mother decided the Catholic Church was not the true church and quickly moved the family from Sunday Mass to a Calvary church. There she could put on a big show. Later I called it the Jesus show. Here it was safe for her to be over the top, excited for God. She could talk to others in an excited, wide-eyed, over-expressive way about how amazing God is and the wonderful things he is doing in her life. Worship with hands in the air, speaking in tongues, and the stupid goosebumps on her arms. The goosebumps are weird because I could feel like she could almost command it. I know goosebumps are involuntary, but I swear my mom can make them happen at will. Right, because she gives herself so much power she's getting from herself, from her own histrionic. She's giving herself goosebumps. They give themselves goosebumps over their own narcissism. That's how happy it makes them. That it gives them goosebumps. Basically, she made a spectacle of herself, and it was all because she was on fire for Jesus. No weird looks or pushback for her behaviors, and she was actually encouraged to act like an idiot. It was all very embarrassing, and I hated watching her pious and ridiculous outbursts in church. She was going to be the #1 Christian at that church. Even at a young age, on some level, I knew she was doing all of this so she could be the center of attention. It was all fake. And that's exactly like when my mother, I wasn't in church, but my mother was this over-the-top, histrionic borderline, okay, that made my fucking skin crawl. I couldn't even look at her. I didn't want to hear her voice. Every sound, every utterance out of her mouth, I wanted to crawl up inside my own fucking asshole and die. Because you know it's all fake. But they're getting off on it to the point where they give themselves goosebumps over the satisfaction of their own narcissism. If I questioned anything about the Bible or God, then I became a doubter of Christ and maybe did not believe or was not right with God. When I asked Mom why she got so excited, she would say she couldn't help it, and God's Spirit moved over her. She couldn't help. It wasn't God's Spirit, and this is what I'm telling you. These religious narcissists are full of shit. It's about It's about worshiping themselves. It's all self-adulation. It's all self-worship. All of it. She worships herself so hard she gives herself goosebumps. She could feel his presence. I never felt God's presence, and I doubted that I was saved, or maybe I was going to hell because I was not a true believer. What a mind fuck. The worry and scare tactic about going to hell lasted until my late 30s. Mom had a good run at this church about 6 or 7 years before the inevitable church scandal would happen. Sunday services turned into Wednesday evening service, Saturday church cleaning, and Sunday both services 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. as my father and mother ran the church bookstore, not to mention all the potluck home Bible studies my mom hosted, a Christian version of Martha Stewart. I hate that bitch Martha, and when I first saw her on the TV, thought, there are two bitches out there like that? Anyway, I hated every second of it and felt guilty because I knew I was going to hell. But then I had been indoctrinated to believe all this bullshit. So when the pastor got caught fucking his secretary, I was relieved. That meant we did not have to go to that church anymore. Mom did try to seek out a new church, but for some reason none of them were the right fit for the family. Maybe father had put his foot down, or she had found the only church in town that would accept her behavior, and the new churches were not as charismatic. But by then the damage was done. So much so that soon after my family left the church, I found a friend that went to a fun church. I joined in and did like the Sunday youth service along with the camps, backpacking trips, Mexico outreach, etc. Lots of fun things to do. Too bad it all came with a huge helping of guilt, worry, and self-worth issues, as I never felt God, and God talk seemed suspicious to me. Plus the constant reminder that if I fucked up, I would go to hell because I had never really been saved and was this horrible sinner all along. I could no longer put on the appearance that I was a good Christian and stopped going to church by the end of high school. At that time, I still believed there was a God out there who cared, but also watched and waited for me to fuck up and maybe wasn't letting me into heaven. You know who's not letting you? That's your mother. See, you're confusing God with your mother because your mother replaced God with herself, with her own narcissism. None of this is normal or healthy. Fast forward from the time I had stopped going to church to 12 to 13 years later at my father's funeral. Just for the funeral, my mother went back to her Jesus ways and held a memorial service in our backyard. She had Dad cremated. She had not been to church in 15 plus years. So she goes from this virtuous standing there and God is me. She doesn't go to church for 15 years because it was never about God and it was never about the church. It was about her and her own supply. And she couldn't find a church that would let her replace God with her own fucking narcissism. Period. During the service, Mother had planned an old church friend played the guitar and sang religious songs. Without missing a beat, Mother closed her eyes and raised her head to the sky, hands in the air, and worshipped, lips moving to the words of song and those stupid fucking goosebumps on her arms. There it is. There she had the fucking opportunity to be God again. And nobody was going to stop her. Because who's going to stop her at her own husband's funeral? Your mother was a religious phony the entire time. She gives herself goosebumps. Her religious narcissism gives herself goosebumps. All eyes were on her at my father's fucking funeral. She still had to be the front and center of attention. I remember angry tears streaming down my face and wishing this had been a funeral for two. At the service, Mom planned a potluck at the yard and continued hoovering up the sympathy and attention because her beloved husband had just died. A fucking potluck. Cheap. Luckily, my close friends were there for me, and I knew I loved and knew I loved inappropriate humor. So the jokes about mom and her crazy display during the funeral, thank God for them. Around 2 years after my father died, I had the what the fuck moment with my mom. That was when the narc haze started to lift and my critical thinking skills kicked into high gear. A year later, I moved to Europe, and while the toxic haze was lifting, I started to question everything. My mother, a person who supposedly loved me and I had trusted, had lied in my face for years, and I had believed all the lies. I wondered what other lies I had swallowed growing up. I could trust no one and nothing. Then I started to examine my faith, realizing religion and the church had been used to scare and control me, and I was tired of being controlled and scared. That's what Mother had done, lie to me, control me, and use scare tactics. I slowly lost faith. It was painful and scary. I felt like a child that had just been told Santa Claus was not real. I became obsessed with watching any documentary I could find on cults. The Scientology documentary, Going Clear, was the aha moment, when I realized I was no better than the brainwashed Scientologist. I mean, what makes their Xenu story any more believable than a dude that can do magic like walk on water, raise the dead, turn water into wine, and multiply food? Nothing. Nothing. Or a 600-year-old man built a giant ark ship and put every animal on the planet on it. Fucking... some holes in that story. It just all seemed like lies and a scam to get control, power, and money. I might be stepping on some toes here, but that is not my intention. Sometimes I wish I could turn back time and still try to believe and find comfort in the saying that God is in control. But my faith is gone. I cannot go back and believe in God the same way I cannot believe in Santa Claus again. The sad thing is I feel comfort knowing that more than likely when I die it is all done. There is nothing. Now, personally, I don't believe that. I don't think there's nothing. I don't think religion has it right, any of them, on any level whatsoever. Okay? I think there is some sort of creator. I don't know what form it is. I don't think we have the capacity to understand it yet. I just don't think it's possible that all this happened by chance. Okay? I consider myself pretty agnostic, but to say there's no greater being or greater thing that we don't understand, okay, to say we just die, it's possible we could, but I just don't think so. I just don't think so. There is nothing, which feels better than to worry about spending an eternity burning in hell because I will never be good enough. I still hold out hope there is something out there, something special and great, and makes us all better people. But for me, any type of organized religion is not the answer. Thanks, Mom. I really don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing she inadvertently influenced. Now that I'm not religious and don't believe in any gods, I feel more grounded, peaceful, and happy. Sincerely, in a better place. Because, and I've talked about this before. I don't know if you've seen my videos about how these religious narcissists are really atheists. Because what they're talking about, they're not talking about worship, they're talking about themselves. And when they say they have a connection with God and God speaks to them, what they're telling you is, don't disagree with me, do what I say, otherwise you're disrespecting God. Your mother's goosebumps were over the narcissistic supply she received. She gave herself goosebumps. Yes, she did. Because she was receiving supply from her fake religion. That's what went on. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for another contribution and story in a better place. I really appreciate it. I hope it helped. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.